All right, good morning, everyone. /afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Salutations. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Cook, if I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you. I'm the coordinator of the honors program. Very excited to introduce our two speakers today. This is, if you're not familiar with the Capstone, this is the cumulative, the culminatory project that our honors graduates work on. And so they get to choose anything in the whole wide world they want to. We want to thank all of our honor students who are here in the audience. We want to thank Professor Landis, who is Ryan Skaggs' mentor. Thank you so much. Professor Landis mentored our two presenters yesterday also, so she has kind of done the lion's share of the mentoring here, and we appreciate that a lot. Thank you all our honors committee members. Thank you, Dr. Ebay. Thank you for everyone who's here. We appreciate you a lot. I want to get out of Ryan Skaggs' way. He's going to be speaking to us today about Runner's High. His presentation is called Running High-Minded, a deep dive into factors that can impact Runner's High. Thank you, Ryan.
So, my name is Ryan Skaggs. I'm presenting Runner's High, and basically some factors that kind of go into it. So, one thing we'll look at is this high is basically, it's a well-known but not so well-known phenomenon known as Runner's High. The running community deems this as the best sensation in the world. You might be asking, why is that? Well, we'll get into that. However, not many others know of this feeling outside of the running community, so that's what that's what I'm teaching you all about today, kind of educating you on Runner's High, because it's a well-known phenomenon, but we just need to get more into it. So, additionally, we'll kind of look at some factors that can make or break this feeling, but it be getting faster or slower. So let's go ahead and dive in. And one Boston Marathon runner said that the true but rare runner's high is a zone that we enter when everything seems to fit perfectly, when time stands still, and when we can run almost without effort. So to begin with, a reason why I chose runner's high was because I've had a personal experience with it. So it has benefited me in 3 ways. It has helped me through getting a performance boosting when racing. So whenever I was kind of dead tired, I would like to have that feeling, and it made me a better runner. Another thing was just having that euphoric feeling. It's just astronomical. It's out of this world. And then also just zoning out and being away from reality is kind of nice. I know we can all agree on that mainly. So, but many people ask, what is runner's high? Well, to begin with, the true definition is an intense feeling of elation, typically following exercise. It is the result of chemical reactions in the brain and body during prolonged periods of exercise. But you might be asking, well, what's a more scientific approach? Well, another one is an emotional state during or after endurance training characterized by reduced pain sensitivity, sedation, euphoria, and reduced anxiety. So a couple of definitions kind of go over before we get into this. Endorphins is any of a group of hormones secreted within the brain and nervous system and having several psychological functions. They are peptides which activate the body's opiate receptors. Endocannabinoids are naturally occurring lipid-based neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers in the body that send signals between nerve cells, and then the most important feature of today's presentation is anandamide. Anandamide is a naturally occurring aromatic and acid derivative present in some foods and mainly in mammal brains, specifically humans, where it acts as a messenger molecule and plays a role in pain, depression, appetite, memory, and fertility, among them. So, kind of sum that up, it is a natural chemical brain reaction. It happens after prolonged periods of exercise. It's not just with running, it can also be things with swimming, bicycling, and even choir. You might be asking why choir? Well, whenever you're singing, that gets that brain flowing and gets it moving. It also causes reduced pain, like I said, sedation, and the most important thing, euphoria. And then a lot of conspiracies that Runner's High has is does it deal with endorphins? Well, the main thing is it's not actually endorphins. Recent research has shown that it's endocannabinoids, but the reason for why this became around was back in the 1970s when this term first came around. It was from the United States recreational running boom, which that is when people started to realize running is not a group effort, but it can be individual based. So they started running it alone, and because of this, people started feeling this high, and they were kind of curious on this. So back in the 1980s, that's when research started to begin on this. And because of that, people were getting confused with what is it actually. So in the 1990s, they found out through a different theory that it's actually endocannabinoids or endocannabinoids, whichever way, whatever. But the main thing is that even the Merriam-Webster dictionary gets it wrong. It says associated with the release of endorphins. So even our own personal dictionaries that we can trust, it's not even correct. So, but the main thing we need to get into is how does the process work? Well, there is a thing called anandamide, like I said, but all this happens through vigorous exercise, and then the endocannabinoids are small enough to fit through the blood-brain barrier, while endorphins, while they might help with dopamine, they're too big to fit through that. And speaking of anandamide, the anandamide is attached to the endocannabinoid, and the endocannabinoid goes through the blood-brain barrier. The anandamide attaches to the opioid receptor, and that opioid receptor stops these inhibitory transmitters from sending out the thing that we're all feeling kind of just boring and calm. So whenever a happy type of feeling happens, which is how I'm kind of feeling right now, what happens is you start to feel this dopamine get released from the anandamide, and the anandamide is a naturally occurring brain reaction. So because of that, like I said, dopamine happens and you feel this good sensation. And you feel that temporary pain relief, and also, once again, the feelings of euphoria. So I'm going to show about a brief 20-30 second clip on how this works. So as you can tell, this is on marijuana.
Before marijuana enters the system, inhibitory neurotransmitters are active in the synapse. These neurotransmitters inhibit dopamine from being released. When activated by the body's own native cannabinoid, called anandamide, cannabinoid receptors turn off the release of inhibitory neurotransmitters. Without inhibition, dopamine can be released. THC, the active chemical in marijuana, mimics anandamide and binds to cannabinoid receptors. Inhibition is turned off and dopamine is allowed to switch into the synapse.
And then THC is also a part of that too, so that's why endo meaning inner and cannabinoids meaning the high feeling. So kind of what that is more in depth, so thanks for the us on that. So, and then we get into the main part of this is the factors. Because whenever it comes to runner's high, it's not just a naturally occurring brain reaction. There's also outside factors that play into it. So we're looking at two main categories, environmental and physical. So the first one of environmental is temperature, and specifically we're going to look at three different scopes. Dehydration, the hot and cold temperature, and white, brown, and beige fat. Then we'll look at a physical factor, which kind of ties into it, of nutrition and diet. Mainly, what should you eat and what's better, dense or non-dense foods. Then we'll tie that into terrain, specifically looking at what's the best surface to run on. Man-made, artificial, and natural. And more specifically, what's better, running inside or outside? And with that, another subcategory is treadmills or running on trails better. Then we'll look at footwear. What shoes specifically is the best to wear versus the worst type? So that's why I got all these, so I'm not just flexing my shoes. Let's see. So to begin with, temperature. Like I said, we have three perspectives we're looking at. We're looking at dehydration, hot and cold temperatures, as well as the white, brown, and beige fat. And I've gotten these factors through personal experience and also just research in general. So dehydration is essentially the body saying, I need water, I need help, because I'm sure everyone has had that hot summer day, you have had no water, and you exercise, and your lips start becoming dry, and your mind just becomes hysterical and all that. Well, basically what that has is, because it's lack of water, the brain becomes functionally impaired, so it can't be thinking, and that causes the runner's high to kind of not be so focused on that, which then leads to more stress on the body, so that the physical aspect is also impacted. And overall, the body's trying to fight for survival, which can impact your chance of getting a slower rate of runner's high. So, leading to my next point, we have the hot and cold, which also kind of ties in with the ability of why muscles and all that can happen. So, you might be asking, what's the best to run in? Well, as you would think, it might be the heat. Well, it's actually not true. The heat is actually worst thing for your body because your body's having to work harder because it has to exhaust more sweat and moisture, and your muscles become more exhausted over time, as well as just tensing up more, and you're just becoming tired. So it provides more wear and tear. And the cold is the opposite. And yes, there is those people that like to run in the 30s and 40s. I don't know why, they just do. But what I found is that the cold has scientifically been proven to show that runner's high works best in that. Specifically 50 to 60 degrees with a little bit of cloud cover, not so much sun shining through, and also a bit of wind. Because that allows you to produce less sweat, so your body is keeping up moisture and water intake. The muscles are less tense, and ultimately, you just run faster. That's just from personal experience. And like I said, based on this picture and chart, about brisk temperature, cool temperature, it works out. And then another thing that ties into this specifically is why we're talking about fat, because there's different types of these fat cells that can keep you warm, keep you cold. Specifically, white fat is the most common. It's the one that just kind of sits in your body right now, and it's just keeping your organs insulated, keeping them warm, and destroying the fat. But the most important is brown fat. Brown fat is a lot smaller. It's not as common, but it stores the energy and it burns to regulate body temperature. So this is what keeps your blood flowing, your muscles going, and your organs from not shutting down, essentially. It also helps regulate sugar levels. So if you take like a Gatorade or honey or something like that, that'll help you kind of regulate that faster. And then fat metabolism helps out with that too. And then whenever we get that shiver feeling, whenever, like right now I'm getting the shivers, so I'm getting the heat right now, I'm trying to keep me warm. And then the beige fat is kind of a mixture of both. It's what helps convert the white cells to brown cells. So that's what makes it the ability to run faster through the brown cells, man. And this kind of leads into nutrition and diet. Why should we even consider this? Well, it goes by this saying. I'm sure we've all heard it. The energy you put into something is what you'll get out of it. So if you're treating your body with the wrong fuel, you're going to be feeling it later. I'm not pointing out anyone in particular, I'm just kidding. But you don't provide your body with correct fuel, results you get out of it not allow you to run as fast. So you might be asking, well, what's the difference between dense and non-dense? Well, the density of food can impact how the body will feel during a run or race. So more dense foods are terrible. So that includes things such as pizza, candy, chili, and cake. So foods you'll enjoy that are caloric, but it's not the best intake. And the reason why, you just feel heavier from consumption, you feel tired and nauseous, so be careful of that. And then non-dense foods, in my opinion, are the best. They are typically dense-ish. They're a lot better because they're lighter on the body. So examples include bananas, oatmeal, Nutrient bars, and Nature Valley bars. While they might get over your shoes, we make it work. So, and also honey. Because these sources give you a quick source of energy, they are longer lasting throughout the race, and most importantly, you just feel more energized. Because if you take a bite of spaghetti and you go to run, you're going to feel that later by, I'm not going to say it, but you know what I mean. And then if you have something like honey, that'll give you a quicker burst of energy, allowing you to kind of be able to run longer over time. And just like this example too, you'll regret nothing on it, but the main thing I point out here is, while dense foods are good, remember, unlike this cat, those runners who eat right and provide their body with the right nutrition will not regret anything, except for running. Shout out to others. This is because proper fueling is a key to running to the high feeling. Which then kind of leads us into terrain. You might be asking, what's the best type of terrain to run on? Is it better run inside or outside? And is it better run on treadmills or trails? So to begin with, artificial is typically a rubberized material. It's kind of very it's very much out there. However, it does cause a higher likelihood for injuries because if you were to lay on the ground, I'm not going to, but if you lay on the ground, it's going to be unbalanced because of the different types of turf material that you have on there. So basically what happens is a most common injury is the IT band. You might be asking, what is that? The IT band runs from your hip flexor down to your knee joint right there. And what that does is when that becomes inflamed from running on the wrong surface, it can cause higher injuries. And honestly, it's just the most accessible. So if you go to any type of football stadium, specifically middle school or high school, you're going to find a track there. It's so easy to find. And this typically has everyday runners, even the beginners or advanced. You'll see them training out there, even in the Olympics. Because like I said, it's track season. Everyone's going to get their high somehow. And then, like I said, examples include tracks and football fields. And then, in my opinion, the worst one, man-made is not the best. But like I said, it's built by humans, that's the definition of it. It typically has no distractions or challenges. It's just a straight, flat, boring road. And there's no chance of a deer coming to you and running you over, or a tree falling from the sky. It's Mother Nature, it's unpredictable. And then the main thing is, it's hard on your joints. Whenever you're running, all that pain can occur in your knees as well as your hips, and then can lead to your back. So just be aware of what you're running on. And it's complex surfaces such as the asphalt out there, concrete that we run on, leading into, it's just, the average race they see it is 5Ks, 10Ks, or marathons, specifically the Boston Marathon like I mentioned before. But in my opinion, I would not run on this unless you absolutely have to. And like I said, concrete and asphalt are great examples of that. And then the best one in my opinion is natural. The reason why is because humans have typically not laid foot on this, and if they do, kind of leads into trails, we'll get into that later. The unknown exploration ability, so whenever you're running on trails, you're in Mother Nature, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, so always watch your corners, learn that the hard way. It's a lot easier on the joints, the surface you run on is a lot better. And the greatest experience I had was just going through nature and enjoying it. And then it's obviously many runners' favorites, and examples include grass, gravel, and dirt. So you might be asking yourself, what's better, outside or inside? Well, personally, I found that outside is typically better because of the following. It has elements of nature in it. You're dealing with Mother Nature, like I said. It's more peaceful and just more settling. It's easier to run with friends, so you can get a group of y'all and do a cool-down run, and also you can just set your own pace, which kind of leads into trails. You have a lot of twists and turns that you get into. That's more natural terrain, and depending on the elements, it can make or break your experience. So just make sure you're running in the right type of weather. Which then leads into inside and treadmills. Inside has no natural elements, unlike that. You're kind of just in a gym setting or wherever you have your treadmill at. You can control your own settings on how you run, but you cannot control your own pace. What I mean by that is you set your speed at 5, 6, and 12 if you want to go that route. I don't personally recommend it. And also you have AC or natural air conditioning. Which leads into treadmills, which personally, you have no natural terrain, it's just a straight, boring loop, kind of like a track. And then it's easier to listen to music because you can hook up, if anyone still uses an iPod, no one does, okay. You can also have exercise programs installed, so you can use a trainer to help you out. And also, it's hard to run with friends. What I mean by that, if you go into a gym, typically they're not going to want to do cardio. They're going to want to get that pump going. And also, it's really hard to get 3 treadmills right next to each other to run together. Which kind of leads me to my next point, footwear. What's the best shoe to wear, and what shoes should you just wear in general? But now I can get to my collection of that. So, main thing is footwear, depending on the service type, it can drastically impact how your types of shoe is. So everyday tennis shoes would be this one. So typically, this is just your average shoe. It's boring, but it works. It's common, it'll make it work. Barefoot runners, I do have to mention them, they do exist. Barefoot runners are anyone that has just no shoes on, but back in prehistoric times, that's what we did to get away from predators and all that. So it's viable, but not most common. And then the best types of shoe is running specific because they have designated types of shoes. This is called a cloud surfer shoe. It makes you feel like you're walking in clouds. I don't know up here, but I know on your feet it does. And then this one is more of like a daily trainer. So each different types of running shoes, while they are more expensive, it's more beneficial to take that next step. And then, as you can tell, I got my slides. That I just wouldn't run in. It's just terrible. It causes more injuries. And then one shoe in particular that we'll cover is the Nike Alphafly Next Percent. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, if you were to run and you know how you get that feeling of I'm having to do all the work by myself, well, this shoe has a carbon fiber plate in it. And that carbon fiber plate allows you to basically do half the effort because it's springy. And because of this, it got banned in all Olympics and also any type of marathon running because it's basically cheating. So basically, use that if you want to. I'm not saying not to, but that's why it has that. But ultimately, to conclude, runner's high is a euphoric feeling that happens in the brain. Knowing if you have it can help runner predict when they will hit their peak and help them train better and produce better results over time. This feeling allows runners to know when to be their best. Furthermore, scientific research on this subject could enable athletes to break records and achieve success. And honestly, we could have the opportunity just to study this, and we just don't know it yet. So there's a lot of research still to be done on it, but there's new research coming out every day. So, and like I said, it'll help you train more effectively, achieve better results, and future studies equal great unknown opportunities. And then to end on a quote that I made myself personally while I was working with Ms. Landis was, as new generations of athletes stride through and technology is sprinting along, researchers will hopefully close in on the finish line of understanding runner's high. Any questions? Thank you. Yes.
I've got one. So what makes that shoe a cheating shoe?
So there is a carbon fiber plate, and with new technology, they're actually putting carbon fiber plates into shoes, and they're making it to where you're having to do less effort because of all this advanced technology. So because it's deemed as that extra advantage, because if I was to try and run in these versus that person that has those Nike Alphaflies, they'd beat me because they have that extra stride. And that's not, including like height or anything like that. Because shout out to Darian on his height because he has longer strides. But that's one advantage that he would have if he had those shoes on. So,
Way to go being tall.
Yes.
Great skill.
Yes.
Great, okay. Well done, Ryan, thanks. That was good. So, I got a couple here. Was there any research so one of the things that I didn't, and maybe you said this, I missed it, but I didn't see anything about the relationship between the runner's high and the particular benefits after the running. So you talked about the benefits during running, right? But was there anything in your research about sustained benefits, like after the run is over, or is it just a benefit during that running period, and then when the high is over, the benefit goes away?
Honestly, it's mainly just during that brief moment of invincibility. It's kind of like an actual race. So you start out with your pain and you're feeling good and all that, but once you hit that middle part of that race, you're going to feel better and not feeling like you're actually there. And then once you get out of that high, the anandamide comes out of the opioid receptor, and the inhibitory transmitters come back, and that causes that pain reduction again. So that's why everyone, whenever you see their faces at the end of the sprinting line, they're like dead. So yeah.
So was there any research related to any correlation between runner's high and incidence of injury? Like, does it make you more likely to injure yourself, less likely to injure yourself?
Personally, that was not a side I looked into specifically, but from personal experience, I had actually noticed this, and a great example is I had actually pulled something on my hamstring, and I didn't even know it. So whenever I was in that feeling, me personally, I had actually didn't even know until I got out of it, and I was like, oh, this actually hurts, why am I limping? So I could do more research on it, but like I said, this is new research comes out every day,
Sure.
and there's more to be looking into it. Because like I said, it's only about 44 years old, 54 years old, so still a lot more to be on it.